Hi guys, this is Dan from the Investment ABC, your guide to financial freedom. And in this video, I want to present you a Peter Thiel-backed tech/life sciences/biotech company called Abcellera. Abcellera was founded in 2012 by Carl Hansen, who was a physics and astronomy professor at the University of British Columbia for 16 years before founding Abcellera. He is still the CEO of this company as of today and still holds 20% of the company. Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, is sitting on the board of directors at Abcellera and holds approximately 5% of the company. More backers of Abcellera are Bill Gates and DARPA. The company had its IPO in December of 2020, where it raised $555.5 million in cash. The company was valued at around $20 per share, but the market was extremely bullish back then and retail investors were chasing SPAC stocks and the next hot IPO, so that the company was trading at around $17 per share on its first day. Many investors got burned and the price kept falling and falling since that day to currently under $15. I'm doing this video right now because I think Abcellera is presenting a very good risk-reward ratio currently when you hold its shares for the next 5 to 10 years. So what is the company doing? Abcellera has a full-stack AI-powered antibody discovery engine that searches, decodes and analyzes natural immune systems to find antibodies that its partners can develop into drugs to prevent and treat diseases. Conventional drug developers, especially smaller companies with limited cash, are focused to bring that one drug to the market so that they don't have the resources to focus on making the process of drug development better. Abcellera is finding potential antibodies from the human's own immune system by screening huge data sets of human B cells. The more data Abcellera collects, the faster the company can find more effective antibodies against different diseases. The company is stating that approximately 92% of approved antibody drugs are derived from the natural immune system. Abcellera is focusing its business primarily on the antibody and cell therapy market, which are growing both rapidly. The antibody market is expected to grow to $261 billion in 2025 from $143 billion in 2019. While the cell therapy market is growing from 1 billion to 17 billion in the same period. What is unique about Abcellera's business model is that it is not competing against other biotech or pharma drug developers, but that it is partnering up with them. Big pharma drug developers like Eli Lilly or smaller biotech companies are approaching Abcellera to find new antibodies for a specific target. Abcellera is trying to find the best antibody for this target, faster and more cost-effective than if the drug maker is trying to find it in-house. Abcellera is only charging a small upfront fee to cover its expenses and is focusing on milestones and royalty payments. This business model has a high risk but also a very high reward approach. It shows investors that the company has a lot of faith in its technology and that it is willing to give up a lot of monthly revenue that it could generate with higher fees to generate way more revenue from royalty payments once the discovered antibodies are making it into real drugs. Abcellera will most likely get 10 to 15% from each dollar in revenue that its antibody generates. The best-selling drug in the world in 2020 was Humira with almost 20 billion in revenue, which was developed from antibodies. If Abcellera hypothetically would get royalty payments from such an outstanding blockbuster drug, it would generate 2 to 3 billion in revenue alone from one antibody. Currently, the company has 29 discovery partners they are working with and 119 programs under contract. From these 119 programs under contract, Abcellera has started to find antibodies in 54 of them. There is a lag between programs under contract and starting a program because the partners need to be ready to continue development when they get the results back, so there is a long preparation time. From these 54 antibodies, one of them resulted in a developed drug so far. The program was led by Eli Lilly to develop a COVID-19 antibody. Abcellera was able to discover a potential antibody and managed to get an emergency approval for its COVID drug in only 6 months. The drug is called bamlanivimab and generated around 810 million US dollar in the first quarter of 2021. Abcellera's share from royalty payments for the drug was 171.5 million US dollar. In the latest conference call, Abcellera stated that the revenue for the drug would be lower because the FDA removed the emergency authorization for the drug. Eli Lilly is transitioning to a combination of bamlanivimab and another drug called estivimab to treat the new variants which are resilient to either of these drugs alone. Abcellera managed to react quickly and discover a second antibody called LY-CoV1404, which showed in preclinical studies effectiveness against all variants. A decision on whether the drug will get also emergency authorization will be made this summer by the FDA. If the FDA grants the emergency approval, it could mean further relatively high revenues in the short to midterm. Aside from the COVID antibodies, Abcellera has one more antibody in clinical trials. The company acquired this antibody when they bought Triani and its humanized mice technology last year for 90 million US dollar. Furthermore, two of Abcellera's partners have their antibodies in the late stage of preclinical studies and are ready to move to clinical trials. All the other programs and antibodies are in early preclinical studies, and it is not clear if they ever make it into the clinical studies. According to the National Institutes of Health, 80 to 90% of all drugs fail before they enter clinical trials. And another study from MIT shows that approximately 14% of all drugs are passing the clinical trial successfully. So the chances to develop a drug are very slim and also costly. The advantage of Abcellera is that it is covering most of its expenses through research fees and still has multiple shots to finish a drug through all clinical trials and into the market. Time will tell how many of Abcellera's antibodies are making it into the clinical trials. If we assume that only 3 to 4 of Abcellera's antibodies from current programs are making it to the market in the next 10 years and further assume that the drugs are generating 50 million in revenue per year for Abcellera, the company would make approximately 150 to 200 million in revenue per year from royalties, which would be disappointing for investors. The company has to increase its partner programs substantially in the coming years, and investors have to hope that Abcellera's antibodies have a higher probability of success. In a recent interview, the CEO Carl Hansen said that he is expecting to have 1,000 partner programs by 2030. That would mean Abcellera would generate almost 100 new partner programs each year, which sounds extremely ambitious to me. But let's assume the number is accurate, which would give the company the chance to generate conservatively 2.8 billion US dollar in revenue per year by sometime between 2035 to 2040 if we take the same statistical success rate as the conventional drug discovery method. The numbers are very conservative. It could always happen that one of Abcellera's 1,000 antibodies is a new Humira, which could generate $2 to $3 billion alone for the company. Furthermore, the success rate of Abcellera's antibodies could be much higher than the conventional methods, so that way more antibodies are making it to commercial drugs. This has to be seen over time. But even with only 2.8 billion US dollar in revenue, Abcellera's earnings would be extremely high since most of the expenses are already covered by the research and licensing fees. With 2.8 billion in earnings and a PE multiple of 30 for a high growth company, we would estimate the market cap of the company to around 84 billion US dollar by 2035 to 2040. This would still be a 21x in almost 2 decades or an 8.75% per annum. It is really hard to make a revenue prediction for Abcellera since it all depends on the success of the antibodies and luck is also a huge factor. The only thing which interests me is that is it worth buying the company at a current valuation of around 4 billion US dollar? In my opinion, the answer is clearly yes. which is also the reason why I have bought the first position in this company at a price of $15.03 yesterday. Let's have a look at the last quarterly earnings. Abcellera generated $202.7 million in revenue in the first quarter of 2021. $171.1 million was due to royalty from bamlanivimab, $7 million due to milestones, and $20.3 million through licensing fees of the recently acquired Triani platform, and $4 million in research fees. The company stated that revenue from bamlanivimab would be lower in the second quarter, which led to a substantial decline in the price in the last few months. In my opinion, sales of bamlanivimab will certainly be lower in the future and maybe only a tiny fraction of what it is currently. But investors shouldn't value this company as a one-trick pony. The drug should be seen as a proof of concept that Abcellera's technology is working and as a great marketing effort. The second antibody, LY-CoV1404, shows that Abcellera quickly found another antibody for the variants based on the data they already had in their software. The more data the company stores and processes, the faster and better their software gets. When you compare the revenue from Q1 2020 to the first quarter of 2021, investors should understand the potential of Abcellera's royalty business model. Revenues from royalties are long-lasting and significantly higher than just licensing fees. Operating expenses also increased, but in a healthy way when you think that the company is expanding quickly. The company had earnings of $117.2 million in the first quarter of 2021 compared to a $2.1 million loss in 2020. The earnings show us that a lot of the revenue will go straight to the bottom line of the company. Expenses for Abcellera are low and its partners have the main risks and also marketing expenses to commercialize the drug. Another great point for the company is that it has a lot of cash. As of March 31st, the company had around $685.8 million in cash and equivalents and another $193 million in accrued receivables. Since expenses aren't too high like for other biotech stocks, the cash will last for many years without putting the company in need for further dilution. If we have a look at the chart now, we can see that the price was steadily declining since its IPO. Inexperienced investors who bought on the first day experienced devastating losses. The price action and the RSI indicate that we might have found a temporary bottom. At this price level, long-term investors like me are willing to buy the stock and hold it, which stabilizes the price. The sentiment in the stock is extremely bad and a lot of short sellers piled in who have to cover soon, which could drive the share price quickly back to the low 20s in the short term. A lot of weak hands who bought at much higher prices already got out, and the insiders have already sold a part of their shares after the lockup period has expired. Carl Hansen, the CEO, alone sold 6 million shares at a price of around $24 to $25, which is totally normal after a company goes public. These shares are being slowly accumulated by other investors and institutions like Baillie Gifford, for example. Baillie Gifford has a very good track record in finding exceptionally growth stocks. They have been early investors in Tesla and NIO, for example, and many other tech giants. There are some competitors in this field like Schrödinger, for example, that have a similar business model but with a different technology platform. Abcellera has a more aggressive business model than Schrödinger that has much higher fees for the use of its software. This more aggressive business model has a higher risk in case of drug failures, but it will most likely lead to more partner programs for Abcellera and more potential drug developments. Another direct competitor is Berkeley Lights, which Abcellera sued recently for patent infringement. Overall, it really depends on how much value these companies can provide for their partners with the technologies. It is hard to say at this moment who will produce the best results, so we have to observe the development of these companies closely. What I like in the case of Abcellera, for example, is that one of their partners, Gilead, expanded its partner program. This must mean that Gilead sees potential in Abcellera's platform. As an investor, I want to see more companies using over and over Abcellera's technology. So what is my verdict? Overall, I think Abcellera has a great business model and huge upside potential. The royalty business model gives them the possibility to cover their expenses and have minimal risk while at the same time participating in the commercial success of the drug. The company has the luxury to have almost unlimited amounts of shots to find the next Humira, unless they can maintain the technological lead in this field. The more partner programs the company establishes, the higher the chances that one of them will make it into the successful drug. You can think of Abcellera as the pick and shovel seller, while the biotech and pharma companies are looking for their next gold mine. The low upfront fees are especially valuable for smaller biotech companies with limited resources and will lead to more companies at least trying out the platform. If you are confident in your product and you know it works and brings value to the users, this approach is the best approach. Furthermore, time is on your side when investing in this company, in my opinion. The more partner programs the company establishes, the more data they can collect and the better its AI software gets, producing more value for customers. The current valuation of $4 billion is not much in comparison to the future potential revenues that could be generated from royalties. Unfortunately, the drug development process takes a long time and on average approximately 10 years, so investors need to have a very long-term horizon when investing in this company. I have bought shares because I think long-term the company has huge potential and short-term there might be a rebound back above the $20 level due to oversold sentiment. Other short-term catalysts are the emergency authorization for LY-CoV 1404, which could come in the next 1 to 2 months, and the earnings for the second quarter. Currently, investors are expecting that revenue from Abcellera's COVID drugs will be extremely low in the next few months and years. But this is not certain and the disease could stay with us longer than most people think. Furthermore, more and more vaccinated people still get the disease and need treatment, which could lead to upside surprises in the revenue of Abcellera. Finally, the company could grow over time also into biotech/pharma company itself by also developing its own drug portfolio. The company already built a new facility with the help of a $125.6 million grant it got from the Canadian government, giving Abcellera the ability to mass produce its own drugs at one point in time. This might happen once the first royalty payments kick in and the company has enough cash flow for the huge cost of drug development. The number one risk for the company and all other drug developers is the government regulation madness currently. Currently, we are seeing more and more countries going down the road of socialism, which could lead to a cap in pricing drugs and substantially lower revenues for the whole sector. Furthermore, we could see a broader correction or crash in the Nasdaq, which would take almost all stocks down for a period of time. In my opinion, stocks in general are very overvalued currently, and it is very hard to find good deals, so investors need to be extremely careful and selective. Such a crash could take the stock price down to the $5 to $10 range, where I will definitely add more to my position. I emphasize this could happen and it could not. That is the reason why I already bought into the stock. If you liked the video and benefited from it or are an Abcellera shareholder, please smash the like button to spread the video to more potential investors. Subscribe for more stock picks like this and outlooks on the overall broader markets. Also comment your opinion on this company, doesn't matter if you're long or short. Bye guys and see you in the next one.